So, and I do think I agree with you that there is a somewhat positive side to it. I think just uh, the organization aside, like just the philosophy, the doctrine is actually rather interesting. But I think when an organization like that gets so big and so powerful, that's where you have corruption of that system, and it turns into something completely different.
Mhm.
Which is why I want to ask you about some of the the controversy surrounding Scientology and all of the stories you hear about the terrible things that happen, and how they basically punish anybody for speaking bad about it or leaving. There's that kind of
Mhm.
thing, and some of the things that happen behind the scenes that are probably, I don't know. I'd like to get your take on those things, because there's probably a lot of misinformation and a lot of propaganda out there. So
Well, propaganda is a good word because to me, the way the church operates is a little bit like the Democratic Party. What I mean by that is not so much looking at through a political lens, but more like the side of Scientology that Ron Hubbard picked up, creating it as a religion. He had some influence from Aleister Crowley, and the black magic. And I don't know enough about black magic to really relate it to that Scientology to black magic. It's easier to compare it to the Democratic Party in the sense that they're into. You have someone that walks into the org that's really vulnerable, right? They've had a history of depression, child abuse. They've had a drug problem, and they walk in, and what you have is sort of like what they install into you is like Marxist suffering of victimhood, exploitation, and they and what they will do is they'll find a lot of problems in you and things you didn't even realize were a problem, and then you wonder, is this really a problem? I've never thought about this ever, but they're saying it's a problem, so I got to go through a whole bunch of auditing to uncover to get back to this part of my life. So they kind of sort of take your mind hostage from day one. The first thing you do is take sort of like a personality test. And I thought, when I was taking it, that I was in a good frame of mind at that time, and I wasn't depressed or anything. And it came out, like it's off the charts. I'm a mess. And so they got all these courses that they can put you through to straighten yourself out. And but through auditing though, you go through the most personal aspects of your life, and it's it's recorded. It's on video, right? So imagine waking up one day and seeing yourself like if you're someone like Tom Cruise, a celebrity. Imagine waking up one day and seeing yourself on TV and talking all kinds of nonsense, right? Or saying something that might even be illegal, or just unethical or something, right? And that's the consequences he will have to deal with if he ever decides to leave. So he can't, he could go to jail maybe. I don't know what it is that he has said in auditing, but you do go through some things that are very, very it's things you don't tell your friends. It's things you don't talk about with anyone really. And they dig that out of you, and it is kind of therapeutic being able to talk about those things. But
that's what I was going to say is that process could actually be really beneficial, because that kind of exposing your internal personal thoughts, things that you would conquering your fears, I guess, in a sense, or addressing dark things inside of you, or
yeah, absolutely.
That's a benefit, definitely.
It's a good thing until
sure.
You piss them off.
Well, that's true, because then you have blackmail material at that point.
They got the dirt on you, just like in the political scene. They've got the dirt, and they will, and they're really into, personal identity, right? Like someone's not so much like like someone's, they've heard that term identity politics. It's anything, they're attacking someone on anything but what they want to do, as president or as a congressman or whatever. They're attacking them on, that their relationship they've had with people, with women or something like that. They're real into doing that. So if they usually don't throw the first punch. If someone attacks Scientology, they will come back way 10 times stronger, and they'll hire someone to follow you around with, cameras and harass you and just capture some bit of what you were doing online and expose you, right? And they'll put your name all over the internet. They'll put they'll put you in the media. And they're real good with audio and video. They've got really creative guys that make all their websites and all their production stuff. They're real they're not dumb people. That's the thing. People underestimate them. That write them off as being like this crazy lunatic gullible UFO cult, and these people, they're very smart. They know what they're doing,
Yeah.
And when you have leverage over somebody, you can do whatever you want with them or get them to do whatever you want them to do.
All in all, like, would you say that Scientology, much like any religion, isn't inherently good or bad? It's just how you use it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, the roots of black magic. Black magic is a form of magic used with evil intentions. You go on offense, you smear your opponent, you expose them, you exploit them, and you ruin their life, right? And they have that side to them, and they use it. But everything up to that point is pretty nice. It's a very we never were taught how to figure things out ourselves. In school, we were taught by a teacher. The teacher never. So in the classes that they have there isn't an instructor. There is somebody that if you have a question about something, or they can give you some guidance, but they don't teach it. They have these visual aids that you have, like a ball of yarn and a pencil and some scissors and this basket of visual aids that when you're reading through something, some people that learn better by taking the pair of scissors and associating that with chapter 1 and a thought in chapter 1. And this comes from the way the Japanese learn math, and they use visual aids like beads. I think I was taught that when I was a kid, how to use the beads, that system.
Like an abacus?
Well, yeah. What was it called again?
Abacus.
Abacus, that's it. Yeah. So I was, I think all of us had learned how to use that at some point, but we never learned how to. I mean, we're lucky enough to have the curiosity as intellectuals to want to figure things out ourselves. Yeah, we all have that in common.
Yeah,
most people don't. Most people are unsure of what they want to do or what they're going to do without reading the instructions or being taught the instructions.
Sure. And our school system doesn't help much. We're still operating to some extent on the Prussian model, which people should look up. We won't get into that now, but that's partially why we have a country full of fools right now. Exactly. Not that everybody is, but I hope to change that. I think that's kind of the goal.
Well, I think with the advent of CSIS, the FBI, the KGB, CIA, organizations like that, the advent of those organizations are really what controls the flow of information.
Well, yeah, and we actually recently talked about Operation Mockingbird.
Mockingbird,
yeah. So that'll be its own discussion for another time.
You guys, did you record that already and edit?
Yeah. So I want to wrap this up real quick because we're kind of it's getting a little bit long, and I think we covered a lot of topics. But I want to get your take on, you said how the philosophy of Scientology is fairly rigid and inflexible. It doesn't really change with the times, and so I'm wondering what you think, just kind of as a closing thought, like what do you think the future of Scientology is?
Let's get back. Nothing that succeeds turn you into not thinking machine.